Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point on AFR Talk, the home of muscular Christianity on Conservative Talk Radio. 888-589-8840 is the number to call. I want to open this segment with a clip from Representative Carol Shea Porter. And I want you to listen carefully. This is mind-boggling. This is one of those people that our last caller was talking about. We're paying these people to do this to us. Listen to what she says about corporate taxes, and somehow in her twisted mind, this is what she thinks of corporate taxes in America. Let's listen.
And we know that the rate that the corporations pay is too low. Now, they talk about that we have a high rate, and we do have a high rate in the country, but it's just a suggestion. I mean, people don't really pay that. So I think Americans are realizing that we're not being fair about this, that our tax code is wrong.
In America, you have a right to be stupid.
Did you catch that? This is Representative Carol Shea Porter saying that the tax code, the tax rate on corporations is just a suggestion. Well, tell that to, tell that to Martha Stewart. Tell that to Bernie Madoff. Tell that to who knows how many people are in prison for treating the tax code as if it were just a suggestion. One of the things we've been talking about over the last few days is this has really been sort of a developing story, but the sort of loss of momentum on President Obama's part politically. We talked about the fact yesterday that among millennials, his support has dropped. 61% of millennials voted for him in 2012, 61%. But right now, his approval rating among that same group is down just to 46%. Now, you got guys like Chris Matthews. This is clip 3. Guys like Chris Matthews now, they're starting to get agitated with Barack Obama. Let's listen.
All that time in those 15 years in Kennedy's case and Roosevelt and all those people, they were developing the backroom skills, the one-on-one skills, so how you make friends, how you become class president, how you establish the loyalty of people one-on-one. The key political asset is the ability to sit in a room with 4 or 5 other people and have them accept your leadership. You know that, Nicole, on either side of the party. That's how it works.
I agree.
Obama doesn't have that. He had the speaking skill way ahead of schedule, the inspiration ability, the charisma, if you will, way ahead of schedule. What he has never developed is a love, and that's the right word for it, of politics and love of other politicians, to love to sit around and play cards with them, to try to get to know them, their nuances, how to get to them, their hooks, their triggers, with their buttons. Get to know them, figure out how you can work with some of them, even tough customers like Eric Cantor and Larry McCarthy and Boehner, and get to know the Tea Party sentiment. Try to figure out what is it you can give them.
So that's Chris Matthews saying, look, he's got charisma. He's got great rhetorical ability. Compared him to JFK and FDR, both apparently were kind of clumsy public speakers early in their political careers. But he says Obama's got them beat hands down, but when it comes to political skill and savvy and leadership, he doesn't have it. He doesn't have that. He's never developed it. And he talks about the fact that he cannot sit down at a table. Well, he can sit down with Reggie Love and play cards while they're taking out bin Laden. He can do that. But in terms of just sitting around and schmoozing and kind of helping work people through to the place where they get a deal, exercising real leadership, Chris Matthews says he just doesn't have it. Now, you decode what Chris Matthews is saying here. He's talking about how these other politicians were successful because they were people persons. They were people. They got to know people. They were comfortable with people. They like to chat with people, have conversations with people. What can we work out together? Let's sit down and chew on this and see if we can come up with something. He says President Obama doesn't have any of that. Really, if you decode that, I think what Chris Matthews is saying is that Obama is really an arrogant, cold fish who just doesn't like people. And Chris Matthews saying, look, eventually, finally, that is catching up to him. Now, I'm trying to decide whether to play the soundbite first or talk about the movie first. I'm going to play the soundbite second. This is clip number 2, the Lee Daniels clip. You've heard about this terrible shooting in Oklahoma where a baseball player from Australia was here in America on a baseball scholarship, was gunned down in cold blood by 3 black teenagers, shot in the back in the middle of the day while he was out for a jog. And the teens said that they were bored. They were just looking for something to do. Now, who knows what else is going on? It's possible this is some sort of gang initiation deal. They're gang wannabe guys, and this is the kind of thing you got to do to get initiated. But this seems to be purely and simply a hate crime, a violent crime, a homicide motivated purely on the basis of skin color. And you've got people out there saying, hey, this shows the need for background checks. Even an Australian politician saying we got to have more background checks. But these guys were too young to even own guns. So they weren't even capable of passing a national background check that's already on the books. They would have been flagged on that because you got to be 18 in Oklahoma even to possess one. TSA out there, by the way, is ordering up 3.5 million rounds of .357 caliber training ammunition, 3.5 million rounds, despite the fact that most TSA people are not even armed. The only TSA personnel that are supposed to be armed are air marshals on airplanes. But we know that Homeland Security ramping up. They're buying tanks and 1.6 billion rounds of hollow point. Somebody's going to have to use those. Then you got that mayor in Seattle. He wants businesses to put signs in their windows saying that they are gun-free, no guns here. You know, and all that is, that's like a roadmap to the shops to rob. I mean, that's what. So this just identifies to the bad guys. Here's a place to hit, and you can be guaranteed you're not going to be shot at. Nobody's going to push back. Nobody's going to shoot back. Nobody's going to pull a gun on you, so you can hold this place up with absolute impunity. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this movie, The Butler, which I haven't seen. I'm not going to see. It's just not my kind of movie. There's no bullets. There's nothing gets blown up, so I'm just not kind of interested in it. But it's a movie. It's a fictional movie. It's a movie about a fictional butler, let's put it that way, who serves in the White House in the movie, like from 50-something to 1986. So it starts with Truman or starts with Eisenhower, goes all the way through Reagan. Now, the butler in the movie is fictional, but his story is based on a real life butler by the name of Eugene Allen. And this Eugene Allen, he was black. He served as a butler in the White House between 1952 and 1986 under 8 presidents from Harry Truman to Ronald Reagan. And what the film writers have done is they have completely transmogrified the details of his life, and they've turned him into somebody that doesn't remotely represent the truth. Cecil Gaines is the name of the butler in the movie, played by Forrest Whitaker, who's a good actor. But the name of the butler, who is entirely fictional in the movie, is Cecil Gaines. But people know that it's based on a real-life butler who did serve about the same span of time in the White House. So people are going to assume that the details of this story are accurate. Now, here is a contrast between the real butler, Eugene Allen, and this fictional butler. Now, Eugene Allen did grow up in segregated Virginia, but he worked his way up through the butler profession. Now, here are where the story begins to diverge. The fictional butler, his wife, his boss raped his mom on this Georgia farm. That never happened to the real-life butler. There was no white man raping his mother in real life. Just didn't happen. And then in the movie, the boss who rapes his mom then puts a bullet through his father's head when his father tries to step in and intervene. So you've got this black guy, you got a white guy raping his mom and then shooting his dad, black guy, in the head. So the white guy does the rape, the white guy commits a murder, puts a bullet through his head. Never happened in real life. And then it sets the stage for him to escape his past for a better future. Never happened. He didn't escape anything. He just worked his way up the pyramid. Now, in real life, he was married, and if I was the guy, I would really be offended at this part of the movie in particular. He was married in real life, the real-life Butler, married to the same woman, Helene is her name, for 65 years. He had one son. His name was Charles. He actually served in Vietnam. Now, he eventually retired. In the movie, he resigned as an act of political protest because Reagan was such a racist. Never happened in real life. There's a fictional older son in the movie who got involved in the civil rights movement, involved with the rise of the Black Panther movement, completely fictional, never existed, never happened. And in the movie, this is what would bother me. In the movie, the wife of the fictional butler is an alcoholic, and she has an affair with a next-door neighbor. Never happened. The real guy was happily married for 65 years to the same woman. And the movie paints Ronald Reagan as a racist. But the reality was this, that during the Reagan years, Nancy Reagan, the Queen of Mean, she invited Alan and his wife to a state dinner as their guests, not as a butler, but as a guest, went to a state dinner as a guest of the Reagans. And then he retired shortly after that. Ronald Reagan wrote him a sweet note, according to the Washington Post at the time, and Nancy Reagan hugged him tight. This is the Washington Post. This is what happened. Ronald Reagan wrote, it wasn't a racist tint at all. Wrote him a very kind note thanking him for his service. Nancy Reagan invites him to a state dinner as an honored guest, and then when he leaves, she hugs him tight. He went into retirement. There was no political protest over the racism of Ronald Reagan. I'll play the soundbite when we come back, and then we'll take phone calls, a soundbite from the director. But the point I want to make here is you're going to hear the director talk about how the United States is more racially divided. It's more racist now than it ever was. Well, in part, it's because of movies like this, because this movie distorts history in order to stir up racial tension, in order to stir up racial agitation. So if there is more racism, more race division, I hold this director partly responsible. This has to be intentional on his part, creating racial tension where there was none. Focal Point, AFR Talk.